and cultural heritage in the area. The scale of the damage created significant risks in increased bushfire conditions. The Dja Dja Wurrung Clan's Aboriginal Corporation, which operates under the registered business name of Jara, are working with Vic Forest to make the forest safe, so that the Dja Dja Wurrung people can remediate country in a culturally appropriate way, in accordance with the principles of forest gardening. But a recent article published in the Saturday paper accused Vic Forest of taking advantage of the traditional landowners and loggers of a smash-up operation under the cultural guise of forest gardening. The Federation of Victorian Traditional Owner Corporations says in questioning the knowledge, skills and representative structures of the Dja Dja Wurrung, a racist belief is exposed that traditional owners can't manage their land and can't make informed decisions. Federation CEO Paul Payton says Jara must be the primary voice featured in discussions of Dja Dja Wurrung country as the representative body for traditional owners in the area.
Wombat State Forest is partially on Dja Dja Wurrung country. And it's currently undergoing some critical works to heal country. Back in 2021, there were some storm fronts that knocked down thousands of trees, and now there's a dangerously high timber fuel load that's sitting there, and Dja Dja Wurrung have engaged Vic Forest to undertake a process that is part of healing and managing country to be able to clear some of that fuel load to be able to keep the community safe. And I think it's really important that this occurs for the safety of the community. So ultimately, it's about Dja Dja Wurrung's right to be able to make decisions to care for their country and draw on those tens of thousands of years of inherited knowledge and land care practices to be able to draw upon that, to be able to manage the forest and heal it, to be able to keep it healthy into the future.
And what have, say, politicians and the government suggested for the forest?
Well, the government and Dja Dja Wurrung are working together to be able to heal the Wombat State Forest. So what we're seeing, though, is in the reporting, it's gained a fair bit of media attention, environmentalists expressing some concern, and what we're seeing broadly in the media is what appears to be some what could be termed as latent racism in the commentary around this, that suggests that Dja Dja Wurrung people are unable to manage their country or can't make informed decisions, and what we really need to be doing in the reporting is prioritising those traditional owner voices and prioritising those inclusive and representative structures that's built on self-determination, that's built on years and generations of hard work from our elders working together to establish these structures that enable, as a collective, as a cultural right, to be able to manage country and do it in a culturally informed way that's representative of our rights through the United Nations Declaration of Indigenous Rights of Indigenous People. And the reporting needs to respect that authority and respect that knowledge and respect those rights to be able to do the work that needs to be done to heal and manage country.
So what's happening with the fuel load now? Is it still waiting to be cleared? And what is the best way for that to happen?
The Jara people have mapped out a way to be able to reduce that fuel load, and that's from a culturally informed knowledge and perspective to be able to do that. How that occurs is ultimately up to Jara. It's not for me to say how they do that, but I'm expressing concern about the reporting and the questioning of traditional owner rights, traditional owner knowledge and authority for them to be able to make those decisions about how they heal country going forward. So it's really important that we in the community and the media respect those rights for traditional owners to be able to make those decisions.
At the moment, the federal government, the state government is currently working with the Jara to solve this issue in the way that they would like it to be solved. Is that right?
That's correct. The government has an entity known as Vic Forest who undertake work in the forested areas, So through Vic Forest and through to the government that they're working with JARA to do that. However, the concerns coming from the community and from individuals that aren't part of that representative structure, they're getting more voice than the traditional owners, and so that needs to be addressed to be able to ensure that their voices are heard in this discussion.
And do you find this happens a lot, where people who maybe think they have good intentions rush in and then don't really listen to First Nations people in general?
I think, this is one example. However, there is a common theme that occurs in the media where, whilst First Nations groups such as JARA, their positions are acknowledged, the media tends to, I guess, look for those other voices to be able, which ultimately sends a message of questioning that authority, questioning that knowledge and those representative structures, which is really detrimental to what we're ultimately trying to achieve more broadly around self-determination and nation building and partnership going forward.
And who actually runs or looks after the Wombat State Forest? Is it a collaboration with the government and traditional owners?
Well, that's right. I think Wombat State Forest has been flagged for national park status. I think that's still in the process, but it is something that there is, through that partnership between JARA and the government, that that management of country is currently there isn't currently an arrangement to do that. So I think that ultimately, that natural national park status will ensure that the protection of the Wombat State Forest is maintained. However, this unique occurrence that occurred in 2021 is required this work to be respectfully undertaken to be able to ensure that the forest stays healthy going forward.
And have environmentalists, have they accused the government of logging the forest?
I understand that there is an accusation of that is actually, it's clear felling and logging as we would normally understand logging to be clearing of forest, and that's clearly not occurring, and there needs to be some areas of clearance to be able to enable the machinery and the process to occur. But it's not widespread logging as I understand it. So I think there needs to be a greater understanding of what actually is occurring on the ground as part of this healing country process.
Executive Director at the Lowy Institute, Michael Fullilove, has thrown his support behind an Indigenous voice to Parliament and Australia becoming a republic. Speaking at the National Press Club in Canberra on Wednesday, the head of Australia's leading independent think tank said a voice to Parliament will provide a mechanism for First Nations people to be consulted on laws that will affect them directly. Finishing his address, Dr. Fullilove said as the Queen's reign comes to an end, it's time to consider Australia's constitutional arrangements.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me close by mentioning two issues of history and identity. Strictly speaking, these are not foreign policy issues, but then I've always believed that foreign policy begins at home. First, the voice. It's past time, in my opinion, to recognise First Nations peoples in our Constitution as a milestone on the way towards recognising them in our hearts. An Indigenous voice to Parliament will provide a mechanism for Indigenous Australians to be consulted on laws that will affect them directly. Many constitutional conservatives have testified that it would do no violence to our democratic processes. I hope that we are large enough as a country to do this thing. And second, the Republic. I believe that Australia's head of state should be an Australian citizen who lives in Australia, who is chosen by Australians and represents Australians. I have the greatest respect for Her Majesty the Queen, who has reigned for 70 years with dignity, grace and good humour. But the Queen's reign is entering its final years, and before long, sadly, we will need to consider our constitutional arrangements without reference to that remarkable woman. Becoming a republic would make us prouder and more purposeful. It would be an expression of faith that there are Australians capable